music of Harlem and the poetry of Harlem will always be cross-fertilizing each other, I've asked vocalist Pilar Fitzgerald to help me. Now Pilar, who will give you a musical introduction to the blues.
When we talk about the Harlem Renaissance, we can't just talk about poetry in isolation. Poetry worked in conjunction with and within other art forms, music especially. Perhaps the most significant of these working relationships is with the blues. The blues can serve as an effective musical and emotional vehicle for poetry. Let's look at Bessie Smith's Empty Bed Blues to gain a better understanding of how poetry functions within the musical genre of the blues. I woke up this morning with an awful aching head. I woke up this morning with an awful aching head. My new man had left me just a room and an empty bed. As you can see there, the first verse of a blues song often begins with exposition. By the way, what we normally refer to as stanzas in poetry, we're going to refer to as verses in music. Why is the speaker of the poem, or in this case, the singer of the song, feeling blue? In this particular song, we are immediately told that the singer is feeling unwell because she is lonely. Her lover has left her all alone in her bed. Moving forward in the song, each verse answers the initial question or problem of the song. In this case, why does the singer have an awful aching head? Each verse gets progressively more detailed in its explanation and in its innuendo. And each verse digs more and more deeply into the feeling and emotion of the song. In Empty Bed Blues, we progress until we reach a kind of emotional climax. When my bed gets empty, makes me feel awful mean and blue. When my bed gets empty, makes me feel mean, awful and blue. My springs are getting rusty, sleeping single like I do. Within each verse, too, we hear certain conventions of the blues. In that verse I just sang, you can hear how the rhyming words, blue, blue, and do, return us to the root of the chord, which is the key of the song. The last line of each verse is provocative, often with innuendo or a clever double entendre, and it moves us forward both thematically and musically. Musically, there's also more going on in the third line. The introduction of another chord into the simple chord scheme, the 5-chord for any music buffs out there, matches the deeper thematic push of the third line. The third line adds a whole new element to the story. Take the second verse, for instance. Bought me a coffee grinder, that's the best one I could find. Bought me a coffee grinder, that's the best one I could find. Why does she buy a coffee grinder? The first two lines leave us with a question and with a musical feeling of unfinished business. Oh, we could grind my coffee, 'cause he has a brand new grind. That third line answers the question for us and resolves, musically, back to the root of the chord. Within each individual verse, the first two lines are the same, but they do differ. You hear that in the music and in the way the person sings it. Similarly, every single verse has the same simple structure, but you sing it differently each time. Otherwise, it would just be boring and robotic, like this. Woke up this morning with an awful aching head. Woke up this morning with an awful aching head. My new man had left me with just a room and an empty bed. Instead, we use the emotional depth of the lyrics, the poetry here, to inform the musical choices that differentiate one line from the next, and one verse from the next. The blues is at its core an emotional form. That deep emotion, whether sadness, longing, or desire, often informs the dynamics and the musical choices that a performer can make.